So, Darryl, you raced wingless yourself?
Yep. I've been racing for 12 or 13 years now.
Yep.
Started in 09-10.
Yep. Did you race anything prior to that?
Street stocks for 10 years around about.
Yeah, right. And then you made the transition to these.
Yeah.
And then found your way to president as well.
Yeah, that sort of came about. Todd Wiggsell was racing back in the day, and his dad and mum were on the committee, and Chris didn't want to be the vice president, and the couple of us new guys, there was Brad Evans as well, he came on the same year I did. Noticed on our driver profiles Brad was an accountant, so they asked him to be treasurer, and I guess I was one of the other ones that they selected to be on the committee, and since then been on the committee ever since.
Yeah, right. So, and now you've been president for 8 years?
Around about, yeah. I've just been elected for another 2, so that'll end up 10 years almost, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's it's quite a stint
Yeah.
in any club like that, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming there's the drama that comes with it.
Oh, I'm thick-skinned. I can handle everybody's crap, but it's part and parcel of the job.
Who's the most annoying driver, and why is it Jack McCarthy?
Nah, Jack's not the worst. There's others, but there's always going back fair few years ago, we had some drivers that are pretty annoying, and then they leave the division and you go, oh, thank God they're gone, but then somebody else comes in and takes over their place. So there's always going to be somebody that's, I'm not going to name any names, of course, but there's always people that are annoying.
One, actually, to be honest. Yeah. So, like, any family history of racing before jumping in a streetie?
No. So my dad pit crewed for one of his friends who drove a modified at the time, just locally up at Murray Bridge. And he ended up retiring from the sport, and Dad said, oh, are you interested in getting into the sport? And I said, yeah, all right, no worries. So we went and bought out a street stock, and we shared the racing early in the day, and so he'd race one night and I'd race the next night, sort of thing. And then it got to a point where he didn't do it anymore, and I took over the sole driver of the street stock, and then there was a couple of us guys driving street stocks, and they sort of said we're sick of panel beating, so let's look at this new division of NOS sprints back in the day. Yeah. Let's go and have a look at it. So we sort of looked in it and got into it together, and so Duncan Evans and Brad Evans are the two that I'm talking about. We got in it together and at the same time, and then the next year it became AWSR, and it's really gone gangbusters since then.
Yeah. So what sort of era street is this, like early 2000s of street stock stuff, or like late 90s?
Late 90s, yeah. Late 90s to late 2000s, I guess. I was racing street stocks, and then 09-10 we got into the wingless. Yeah.
What were you racing?
Started off in TC Cortina, and then progressed to a TE Cortina, and then an XF Falcon.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that's I suppose money-wise, it's probably not quite a jump to what NOS Sprint started as anyway.
Oh, yeah, it's hard to say because I really can't remember that long ago. But I guess the getting into the entry division of the NOS Sprints back then was probably triple the amount that we were spending on the street stock. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, it's because the street stock we had the right sponsors to get car bodies for nothing and stuff like that, whereas this is a bit different to just going to the wrecking yard and getting a car body to strip
you can
out.
kind of build them a lot more yourself, so this is a lot more off the shelf kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So how did you go in your first seasons with it?
Well, with this,
Or even the streetie, how'd you go to
streetie, when because I've never actually raced anything before, so getting the hang of how to drift a car, let alone just go around in circles, that's the hard bit. It took me probably 2 or 3 meetings to get the drifting right. But in terms of starting this, it was a big learning curve. Yeah, racing open wheel especially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just the sort of, you can't really bang anyone.
No. So I mean, obviously, ultimately, everyone would like to race a sprint car, and for me, the finances aren't there, and this is the closest thing that I'll ever get to racing a sprint car. So it was pretty much a no-brainer when we at the street stock point going, what do we go to next? Wingless aren't that expensive, to be honest, when you as an entry level, and it was a no-brainer.
And that's obviously changed to where we're at now with wingless. Depending.
I still think it's an entry-level division.
Yeah.
But the money people spend these days is a lot more than what we were spending 12 or 13 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, it's could be more than double now for some guys.
Yeah, I think so. There's some people that spend a ridiculous amount of money, but whether you need to spend all that money, who really knows?
Yeah, I've had that conversation with some people, and some of the figures that I've heard, people just shoot down in flames that there's no way possible, and it's like, well...
I don't see how people can spend that much money, but that's just me. I'm a budget racer. This is a hobby. It's not a be all and end all.
Yeah. Definitely when you get to like the sprint car level, you can understand going that far. That's a whole different ball game in itself.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that like Jack spoke about too. Is like these were sort of in a way meant to help recycle the parts from sprint cars.
I think they still do.
Yeah. And it's like, to some degree, some of that's sort of starting to go out with the amount of money that guys are spending on
I think the top guys wouldn't be using second-hand parts for sure, but people like myself and the guys that are sort of mid-pack to the lower levels, I rely on second-hand tyres still, like I can't afford to go out and buy new tyres all the time.
Yeah.
I do buy new tyres, but very rarely.
Yeah.
And second-hand tyres for the last couple of years were pretty hard to come by because of the tyre shortages and all that sort of stuff. So, but no, I think you can still get away with spending a reasonable amount of money, but not over the top.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's quite a disparity in the wingless, probably in every state, between the top guys and then like sort of mid-pack to lower guys, isn't there?
Yeah, I would say yes, you're right. Yeah.
Is there any like a lot of people, probably not so much in the class maybe, but guys from outside the class often talk about a split in like the top guys to the bottom guys in terms of like, having an A and a B grade kind of thing, or it's such a hard thing to like grade though, isn't it?
It is, and that's as a president, that's one of the things that I wouldn't want to be doing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair that maybe, I don't know who would decide who's A and B grade, whether that be the steward or the clubs themselves as committees. I wouldn't want to be the one saying to whoever it might be, sorry mate, you're not in the A grade, you're running with the B graders tonight, and they think they're good enough.
Yeah.
There are some people out there that know they're not good enough, but there are other people out there that think they're better than what they actually are. And then there's people who you might think that aren't quite good enough, but they're capable. But that's too tough a decision, I reckon.
Yeah.
And then how do they learn properly?
Yeah, that's the other thing, yeah. And that's probably also the beauty of Speedway too, like those sort of mid-pack guys on their given night can be up the front or wing races.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so it's that'd be a super tricky
Some
one.
tracks suit people better than others, and like we've got a fair variety of tracks in South Australia you go to, and there's other tracks that some people might run better at, and they on that particular night they might not be a B grader, they might be an A grader. So you can't really. I don't find it fair that you might be pushing people from A to B grade depending on what track they are. I think everyone should be in together. I think that's how it should remain.
What about some sort of like timing cut-off?
No. Too hard to judge. Yeah.
That's yeah. I mean, well, World of Outlaws does it.
I don't follow World of Outlaws that closely, but I still think that you should be chucking everybody in together. Yeah. And I know there'll be some people that hate me saying that, but it's
all right. You're the president. So
you got to let the new guys learn somehow.
Yeah.
And they do their standard 3 race meetings from the rear, so they might when the faster guys are coming to lap them, they might get in the way. But over at 10 lap heat, generally that doesn't happen too much.
Yeah.
Maybe for the guys that have never raced anything before coming into a wingless, if they've never raced anything, that's pretty hard. But yeah, a lot of the guys that come into wingless are coming from dirt carts, so they've got car handling skills anyway. So
they have some race knowledge at least. Yeah.
So that does help.
So one of the things that you would have seen just grow tremendously is the car count from when you first started.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. When I first started, we were talking about maybe 8 to 10 cars at a race meeting, and that would be the whole club's cars.
Yeah, right.
Whereas now we're talking 35 to 40, and that's not even every car registered in South Australia. We've got guys in Mount Gambier and Mildura that don't come to every race meeting. Yeah, it's and even nationwide, it's just out of control.
So how many are registered in SA currently?
Last year we had 57.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And do they, like, there's a few kept in sheds kind of thing that don't make it out, or?
There's some people that just race Murray Bridge. There's some people that will travel. We've got cars in Mildura that race in Mildura and don't do much travelling. Mount Gambier, the guys, they go to Victoria a lot.
Yeah.
There's quite a few on the Riverland, registered in the Riverland. Excuse me. And, I don't think there's any that are just sitting in sheds that are registered.
Yeah.
Though there might be some sitting in sheds that aren't registered cars, but you know, for whatever reason that is, who knows? But yeah.
Do you know what the national number is for them?
350, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think I might have got it wrong, but someone told me it's actually the biggest class in Australia, which I found hard to believe over streeties. I would have thought streeties would have...
I think it might be the largest open wheel division.
Yeah.
Not sure about
that probably makes sense.
nationwide.
Yeah. I would have said streeties would have killed it.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Just like probably in WA alone.
Yeah.
There's so many over there. So right. So 350-ish of them. Yeah, it's
roughly.
Quite a big class.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's growing every year.
Yeah.
The last 2 years in South Australia, we've had more than 10 rookies to the division. And this coming season, we'll have at least another 6.
Yeah, right.
So that's 26 new guys in 3 years.
Yeah, right. So that's more than
just in our state.
That's more than a feature in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Because, like, have you been to Eastern Creek?
Not yet.
No. So I know that they get 40 plus every night that they're on up there.
I'm surprised they don't get 60 plus.
Yeah, well, they probably could. Like, it's quite a large state.
They're probably down on numbers because nobody was sure really what was happening when it first started. But now it's up and running, they'll probably go bigger than that.
Yeah, and the quality that's not just there, but probably everywhere, has come so far. Probably the last, would you say, like 5 years?
In terms of car presentation?
Like car presentation, but like the quality of cars too.
Car presentation has, over the last 5 years, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Go to a national title and nearly 95 to 99% of the cars are immaculate.
Yeah.
And in terms of the young guys coming through, hard to beat them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose like guys that come to mind, like Tyson Martin and Jack and stuff like that, like their cars are presented like so nicely.
Absolutely.
And, like, until you notice that they're a V6, they genuinely look like USAC spec cars.
Yeah.
Like, which is
the car, like I said, car presentation is incredible. And it's, I don't know why it's improved so much over the last 5 years compared to what it was when we first started. Maybe it's just becoming there's so many more people getting involved in the class and they're bringing the professionalism from wherever they came from.
Yeah.
And then like, everyone's trying to compete with one another. So
it's not like vinyl's gotten any cheaper or anything like that, is it? Like,
no.
Yeah. It's
and that's probably something that's also helped, is that there's a lot of people doing sign writing out there as well. You know, that helps your car presentation immaculate.
Yeah, they've definitely come a long way. I think a lot of categories have come that way. Like some of the junior sedans these days are man, they're so well presented. It's like there's a few junior sedans that like some sprint car guys could be looking at to say, I need to step my game up.
The wraps certainly make things look great, don't they?
Yeah, it's definitely it's a lot more presentable for the whole class too.
Yeah,
it's So, president and your
National Secretary.
Yeah,
so Secretary of AWSR, I've been doing that for 6 years. Just got elected for another 2 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you got a lot on your plate.
Yeah, do a fair bit.
Yeah.
Love the sport.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to, love the sport.
So how much are you actually racing yourself?
Probably between sort of 12 and 15 shows a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, if not, you're at the track in an official capacity, or
I try to be there as much as I can. But if things pop up and I can't make it, I've always got a good crew behind me that help out on race days. So that's something else that's improved over the last probably 4 or 5 years. Is we're getting more and more people help out on race days. Going back 3 or 4 years ago, there was only just sort of 2 or 3 of us doing everything, and that made the race day a bit chaotic for me in particular. But having now we've sort of got maybe 6 or 7 guys, two new guys coming on to learn scrutineering this year, and had a couple of trained a couple of people up over the last couple of years, so that's sort of eased my workload a little bit on race day, even though I'd still do help out scrutineering when I need to. Makes it a bit easier. More hands make a lot of work, they say.
Yeah. So probably one of the things that, like, you know, I was explaining to you before, and I haven't explained it on the podcast, like, I wanted to talk to everyone involved in Speedway, not just drivers. So luckily enough for me, you race yourself, and then you're also in an official club capacity. But, like, how do you even put a schedule together for a class? Like, where do you even start with that?
So it really starts with the venues giving you their sort of proposed dates that they want to run a race meeting. And then from there, you basically try and lay out all those dates in some sort of format like a calendar, and you work out, so say for instance our Ty Beale State Series, want to try and have one round a month rather than sort of have 3 rounds in 1 month, so we try and work out, and we want to try and have one at each venue sort of thing. So you work out, you try and space them out in between other major events throughout the state, like the 60 lapper and the state title, and obviously you've got to avoid the national title as well. So that's where it all starts with your major events, and then you sort of chuck the club shows in somewhere between. I try to not clash with Victoria where I can, in terms of their major events, like their Summer Slam, which was a bit of a balls up last year, but and their state title. But even though their state title's on the same weekend as our 60 lapper this year, which is a bit unfortunate, but you can't always avoid their schedule. They have a lot of race meetings as well, you know, so it's hard to avoid. But yeah, that's how you start. Start with your major race dates, and then you work your club shows out between there. But it all starts with the club sending you their proposed dates that they want to run. Yeah.
There's probably not too many people that sort of know that that's how that even works.
I'm sure there's not.
There's probably a lot of guys that don't care either, but it's
and that's it. There's a lot of people in the division that just want to turn up and race, and they don't give a shit what goes on at committee level. Probably don't even read the emails that I send them. That's one of the other frustrating things as president, is you send out emails with all the information that you think they need, and they turn up on the track and they ask you the exact same question that was answered in an email. Like, read your emails.
Yeah. So is there then much like toing and froing with the venues as to the dates that you go back with?
Yeah, there is a little bit, yeah. The regional venues are probably easier because they don't race as many times as, say, Murray Bridge. And over the last probably 6 or 7 seasons, we have regular dates at the venues as a general schedule layout. So they their dates are roughly the same every year.
Yeah.
So you sort of know what you're going to be getting from this point forward for next year, sort of thing. And then but in terms of like Murray Bridge, there's a few dates there where they've already changed dates on us. So we're just working with them and work out our schedule from there.
Yeah. Is there too many like late call-ups as well?
No, we don't get a lot of late call-up meetings. And generally those ones won't count towards state points or anything like that if they do get added on. But a couple of years ago we tried to make them sort of for the more for the rookies, to try and give them a bit of track time. But then you don't want to embarrass the division either. Not saying that the rookies are embarrassing us, but it's like, say for instance, if it was a World Series night or a big sprint car night, you'd want to have some good drivers there to promote the division a bit and try and get them to come and see our shows when there's no sprint cars on. So it's always a hard thing to juggle.
Because this is the other thing that I've heard from a few people, and it's not confirmed, so it's purely hearsay, but a lot of venues now are picking and choosing the wingless that are coming.
No.
Okay, there we go, done, squashed.
The only one I'll say where that does get done is the State of Origin event, which is in Mount Gambier.
Yep.
Which we sort of try and have 10 from SA and 10 from Victoria, which is the same night as the King's Challenge down there. That's the only one where we've done picking and choosing.
Yep. Yeah, right. So, are you seeing a lot of venues not wanting you guys either because of the car count?
No.
Because that's the other thing that I got told.
Hasn't happened yet.
Because there's so many winglesses rock up that the venues are now not wanting them to come.
I can see that happening in maybe the eastern states like New South Wales, Victoria, because you've got 100 cars registered.
Yeah.
And they're turning up with 60 or 70 cars to Premier Speedway or somewhere like that. I can understand it there to a point. I also don't like it.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to have a division run on the night, then you need to you sort of almost know what to expect because of what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the wingless division's growing every year. I think you need to cater for it.
Yeah. Yeah, because Victoria's into, like, 2 numeric system, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like in V and VX.
So's New South Wales, yeah.
Yeah. And are they getting close to 100 in the second number as well? Or?
No, I wouldn't say so.
No.
Just there's a thing in the rule book that says once you get to 80% of the numbers used, you go to the next prefix.
Okay.
Then once that prefix opens, people will probably change from, say they might want to run N5, they might want to run NX5, so they just change the number. So you actually lose one from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily like that.
It's not necessarily filling up the NX ones or the VX ones, but yeah. So South Australia's really not close to the 80% yet.
Yeah.
I don't think, well, I won't say never, but it won't happen short term.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably not too far away though either.
Well, if we start getting like 57 cars registered, it's not too far away, but yeah, we're at the point where we lose some out of the division, we gain some. So we're really sort of staying on par the last 3 years. We haven't really, I'll say, increased, by 10 in a season to 67. We're staying around the 50 to 57 mark, so we haven't really increased numbers too much.
Yeah. So how much are you talking to other state presidents as well?
Not a lot. Victoria mostly, only because they're a neighbouring state. New South Wales, I talked to the president there, but he's also president of AWSR, so that's one of the other reasons why I talk to him a lot. Not a lot to be honest. Maybe at the beginning of the season just to ask them, what's your schedule? Can you send us when your state title's going to be? So we're trying not to clash with that.
Yeah.
Other major events. But during the season, not a great deal.
Yeah.
If I see a nomination for Victoria or another state pop up on our nomination list that I haven't seen or heard of before, I might give him a ring and say, "Oh, is this guy new or is he, just to find out if he's going to be your rear fielder?" That's the main reason. Just to sort of maybe he nominated by mistake.
Yeah,
it does happen.
It does happen. Yeah, I can imagine. So
yeah.
So one of the things that I've been critical of in wingless, and like I'll put my hand up to it, is the V6 engine.
Yep.
And it's a very hot topic, especially when it comes to social media, and there's the guys for it and then there's the guys against it, and
keyboard warriors, something else the president loves.
So I'm probably guilty of it, so like I'll put my hand up for it. And I've said it before, it's a very hard thing for me watching like flow racing and you watch a USAC meeting to then see what ours are. They're not comparable. But in saying that, I will put my hand up as well. Like watching Chariots last night, the wingless put on one hell of a show.
Yeah.
Like the racing that they've been putting on is definitely it's up there.
I think some of the best racing I've seen is wingless racing in the country.
Yeah.
As for the V8 thing, I don't see it happening for the next 10 to 15 years if it's going to happen at all.
Yeah, right.
So one of the things that we have to get across with the V8 engine, if we were to ever go to a V8, and I'm not saying I support the V8, I don't, is that we'd have to get across Speedway Australia, we'd have to get across SCCA to allow us to run a V8 engine to start with. To me, there's a lot of hidden costs with running a V8, not just the engine. People are going to be burning more fuel, they're going to be burning more tyres, going to be wrecking a lot more equipment. I'm not a fan of the V8 and the wingless in Australia, and I can tell you from an AWSR national point of view, the main item at the moment is to try and keep this engine running as long as we can. Yeah.
So the other thing that's been spoken about is that AWSR has a program in place for researching a V8 engine.
There is an engine subcommittee.
Yeah.
But at the moment, like I said, that's mainly to try and source whatever parts we might be needing to keep this engine running as long as we can. I remember probably almost more than 6 months ago now, as National Secretary, I sent an email out to all the states asking for for them to forward the email onto their members, the drivers, to find out what parts people are having trouble getting. Got crickets. So to me, that means there's no issue.
Yeah.
But then you get all this stuff on social media saying there is issues. Well, how about replying to let us know what the issues are so we can do some investigation? And that's what it's all about. Is we need to have the feedback from the members, not just people making comments on social media. Yeah, it's not enough.
Yeah. So do you see potentially a split in wingless racing then, like guys that there may be a V8 classes and a V6 at the same time, or?
To be honest, I can't really answer that, but from my personal point of view, if we were to go to a V8, and like I said, I'm not a fan, but I don't see it happening for quite a long time. If we were to go to a V8, I think you need to make the decision to say, this would be the date that we go to a V8.
Yeah.
No V6s after that date, so everyone knows. Yeah. And that has to be 3 to 5 years in advance.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what Jack spoke about, was the fact of, like, you need to know a hard date, because you need to know whether you may sit a season out waiting for that engine change or not rebuild that motor knowing that it's coming. Or
correct, yeah. And that's why you need to have, like say, a fixed date, but you need to know well in advance. Yeah. So do you see personally that there's enough life left in the V6 for another 10 to 15 years? Well, it's locked in till 2028 at this stage, and it's got another 2-year option, so that makes it 2030. So that's another 7.
Yeah.
The plan is to go for at least another 10.
Yeah. Are they actually getting hard? Like, do you know from personal experience that they're getting... No?
My personal experiences and things aren't... There are certain parts that may be getting hard to get, but until we know what those parts are, we may be able to source somebody to make some parts for us to keep it going for another 2 to 3 years longer even. Yeah. That's something that we're investigating.
Yeah, because what's the other engine options after this? Like there isn't,
don't know.
There is no other like
I can't
V6.
Can't answer that. Yeah.
There is no other V6 that's sort of really usable.
I haven't actually investigated it, so I can't answer. Yeah. And I would prefer not to answer because I don't want to have the keyboard warriors going, Darryl Sloan said this.
He said they're going barrow turbo everywhere. Yeah, no, it is. Because, and at the same time as much as I'd like to see them go V8, I don't want to see the class dwindle and potentially go away as well.
Well, that's the other argument is if you do go to a V8, are you going to destroy the division altogether? Because people will then go, well, now all I have to do is get a wing and I can go sprint car racing.
Yeah, that's one thing that I
You may get people come back from sprint cars to run both. They might run both. That's something that you're not going to know until you actually do it.
Yeah, because obviously the CT525 engine gets thrown around a lot, being Chevy's crate dirt motor. And that's probably the one thing that I disagree with, that if you're going to keep that in its stock form, that you shouldn't be able to chuck a wing on and go winged racing with it, especially into open 410 stuff.
Well, currently the pro sprints are running the C525, aren't they?
Yeah. They're not heaps free with what they can do, but they're a lot more sort of freer with them than what they come from in the box. So.
It's one of those things that's all hypothetical. Yeah.
It's definitely it's an interesting topic, but it is a very hard thing to, because when these were first around, there's so many V6s in the wreckers, and surely they're getting thin on the ground now.
I'm sure they're getting thinner. I wouldn't say they're thin just yet. Yeah. One of the mistakes that we made as a division was increasing the bore size from 40 to 60 maximum bore size. What we should have done was keep it at 40 and then say in 3 or 4 years' time we're going to go to 60. So then those people that are running the 40s would keep their blocks under the bench somewhere and then bring them back out when we go to 60. So that was one of the mistakes we made as a division for the longevity of the engine. Yeah. But it's something that you can't really take back because obviously you've got people that have gone to 60 and... Yeah.
They're done after that?
Yeah.
So they're paperweight after that point.
And to me, I'd be disappointed to hear that people are going find an engine that's sort of stock standard, then they go straight to 60 when they could make it last a lot longer. Yeah, which helps the division last a lot longer.
Yeah, because that is one of the confusing things that not being a part of racing or anything like that, but from hearing that, like, some guys have literally just got a motor out of the wrecker and they've pulled all the road stuff off and away they go.
Yeah.
And then the other figures that I hear that guys are spending on motors is just...
Well, that's how the division started. It was supposed to be an entry-level division where you can just run a wrecker motor in the car and try and stop the cost of the division going out skyrocketing. But you're always going to get those people in motorsport that are going to spend the money on getting their engine to where they want it to be to win.
Yeah, because there's... I don't want to say who it is, but someone told me that their motor's straight out of the wrecker and that's a front-running car. And then, the other cars that are around it, they're not, like, just wrecker motors. So it's like...
It can happen.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
To me, it's more about car setup and driver than the actual engine itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm no good at either.
All right. So... But you're like, you take your racing seriously though, don't you? Like,
I'm there to have fun.
Yeah.
I like to win.
Yeah.
Don't win very often, but when I win, it's enjoyable. Yeah. Like, I like to think I take my racing seriously, but it's more about fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's where, like, Joel Chadwick said he's just so far as a racer that he can't take it as fun. Like, it's just gone past that point.
Well, I guess if I was in his shoes and you get used to winning, losing's not fun.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, no, everyone's got to be realistic with where they are, I suppose. You know? And I'm realistic. I'm never going to win an Australian championship. I'm never going to win a state title. I've only ever won one feature race in the 13 years I've raced. So yeah, some guys just aren't going to do it.
Yeah,
that's why you got to make it fun. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
If it wasn't fun, why would you do it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's there you go, Joel. You can take that. Yeah, it's
Well, I honestly think that's part of the reason why he's having a break. If he is having a break, is he wasn't actually enjoying it as much as he used to.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that point where I don't enjoy it anymore, and I'll be hanging up my helmet. So yeah. While I'm enjoying it, I'll still do it.
I can imagine hanging up the presidency before hanging up racing, if anything.
Yeah, well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Is there... I suppose you probably can't go into, like, too much of it, but is it as sort of drama-filled as, like, people would imagine it to be?
No.
No.
No, I don't think so.
No. So...
What can make it drama-filled is the question you got to ask, I suppose. The only thing that does annoy me is
the
people getting on Facebook.
Yeah.
But our state almost lost a potential. Well, we had a sponsor for a series round of the Thai Bills at Waikerie, and we almost lost that sponsor this year because somebody made a comment on Facebook, and he'll know who I'm talking about. Made a comment on Facebook and tagged the track in on the comment, and the sponsor saw it, didn't like it, so we almost lost them.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing that people don't realise their comments are doing on Facebook, is they're losing people that support the sport.
Yeah.
So, and that's pretty annoying.
Yeah. That's where, like, being honest, I've probably, since starting this, I've pulled my head in a fair bit with the social media stuff. So, yeah, it's...
And I'm not personally on Facebook, so
yeah,
I don't see it all. But people send me screenshots of people's comments and, he's saying this, he's saying this. Yeah, okay, all right. You got to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a standard. Like, I mean, as far as, like, every sport is accountable for it these days.
Absolutely.
Like, if you're playing local club footy, those rules apply to what you're saying on social media and stuff like that. Like, there's plenty of drivers around the country that are sitting on the sideline for stuff they've said on Facebook.
I'm sure that every sporting division in the country's got a social media policy.
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah. I've actually done some work for a builder who said their headquarters are in Canada and they have 3 guys who search through social media looking for posts.
Yeah, right.
So,
Three guys.
3 guys in Canada that they look through... Like, wherever the locations are for their sites, they look through the geo locations.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more rural stuff. I'll tell you off air. It's a bit more rural stuff, but yeah, they just look through everything, and he's like, just don't take any photos on site. He's like, one photo, and he's like, I'll have a phone call before you've even posted it.
Like, social media is a community thing now, and most people are on social media of some form or another, and it's just having to deal with the aftermath of people's off the cuff comment. They think it's off the cuff, and
Yeah.
there are repercussions in some cases.
Yeah.
Not every case, but yeah.
Yeah, well, every sport's dealing with it, so it's like...
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I'm only imagining it's probably worse in, like, bigger sports or such.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I wouldn't want to be dealing with it at AFL level, like with all this, what goes on in that.
Yeah, they're probably the worst guys for it. Like,
Oh.
some of those guys are just like, man,
Yeah.
like some of the like, like just say like the Wingless or Streety guys making comments is like some of the stuff they say is actually funny. Whereas
Yeah.
like you see some of the stuff AFL players do, and you're like, are you for real, man? Like you're in $1 million a year or whatever it is. It's like,
Why do you even need to comment on social media?
yeah. So probably like talking about like sponsorship in terms of stuff like that. I keep referencing him a lot, but he's probably one of the sort of bigger figureheads in the sport. But Jack spoke about as to he doesn't see why there's no reason why there couldn't be a national touring series with Wingless. There's enough of them around the country and enough good ones. There's no reason why you couldn't do like a World Series style event for Wingless.
Well, we did have it wasn't necessarily a national one, but we had a series that was 3 major meetings. One was in Queensland, one was in Sydney, and one was at Murray Bridge. Then COVID hit, and that sort of knocked that one on the head. When I say we, AWSR, sort of wasn't run by AWSR, but they backed it, and it was more Made to Go that put it together with the 3 venues. It's been raised the last couple of years at AWSR conferences. I wouldn't say we'd never do it.
Yeah.
It's just the logistics, really, that you have to work out. And being what's supposed to be an entry-level sport, there'll be a few that will travel to do all rounds. And the hard bit is trying to include Northern Territory, Western Australia, Tasmania.
Yeah.
They're the hardest 3 to try and include if you wanted to make it a true national series. I mean, World Series is struggling to do it at the moment for whatever reason. So, I wouldn't say it's never going to happen, but I can't see it happening in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Because I started thinking about it like pretty like deeply, and it was like, as far as a promoter goes, like surely you could put on a really good series of it.
Yeah, you could, and it's really the logistics of like when do you have those events in the particular state? Like, do you run them at the state titles because you know that the guys are going to get some of the interstate guys are going to travel there? Do you run it the same weekend, or do you run it a weekend before or after so that people can go up there and do 2 weekends of racing? There's a lot of logistics involved to it.
Yeah, you got to probably that's sort of planning years ahead kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Something like that. Eh?
Yeah.
I'm not actually a big fan of like big events being held on state title nights, to be honest. I sort of like them to be a state title, and
I agree. State title should be its own thing. It's more working in like with maybe the weekend before or after it. Yeah. Which a few states have tried to do with the national title when they have it in their states, and it's worked in some cases and others it hasn't. Yeah. Generally, like the bigger events, they've got an event either pre or after, or sometimes both, because it's like... Yeah, it encourages people to go and maybe spend a week there on holiday as well, like in between, do a bit of sightseeing in the country or the state that they're in. Yeah. So, as SA president, how much like prep went into the national title at Murray Bridge the other year? Quite a lot, yeah. So our club had to organise the Calcutta venue. Yep. We obviously had to help set up with how we're going to run scrutineering days and things like that. The national body, AWSR, obviously I can give you a perspective on that side as well, do a lot as well. They do majority of the actual organising in terms of who's going to be there and officiating and things like that. But the state club did a lot of background work in terms of organising the Calcutta. We did our own beer thing as a club. Yep, yeah. With the beer, which Big Shed did for us. So we did quite a bit, but there's also AWSR do a hell of a lot more than that as well. So yeah, a fair bit. It's sort of you're planning 18 months in advance for the event once you know that where it's going to be. Yeah. And that's, once again, stuff people will never see or appreciate either as well. People probably have no idea. Yeah. That's just one of the things that's like so crazy. There's so much to like
that goes on in the sport more than the racing. Like,
Yeah.
there's probably more than the racing, wouldn't there?
Oh, I would say a lot more, yeah.
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 Like, obviously, during our off-season, busy
Doesn't stop.
organising dates, getting ready for the next season. Got people ringing up about how do I register a car, and new people joining the class. And then there's obviously conferences you go to for rule changes and things like that. And, so it's non-stop for me, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any, like... Well, I don't know, it's probably a hard thing to ask you for your personal opinion being in the position you're in, but where do you want to see Wingless sort of ending up?
Good question.
It's probably put you on the spot there a bit, being president.
I don't think it will change much from where it is now, apart from maybe engine in 10 plus years time. But yeah, I think where it's at now, it's in a good place.
Yeah, it's definitely getting better. Like every year.
For every year we move forward, we're growing. The registration count nationwide, as you said, we're probably the biggest open wheel division in the country, and I don't see it stopping.
Yeah,
just huge numbers.
Yeah, which is, as we're saying, could be a problem for it as well in the near future.
It could well be, but yeah, I think that there's also probably a lot of states that run events where they couldn't run without Wingless because they're turning up with good numbers.
Yeah, that's where the thing I've been to some events where I'm like, man, we could do with the Wingless here right now to help bring this track in, or like. Yeah,
and I don't want to be bagging other divisions, but when you turn up to a race meeting and you've got 35 Wingless or 40 Wingless, this is in South Australia, turning up to an event, and then you have 2 or 3 divisions that are running 5 or 6 cars, it's just it's not a good look, I don't reckon.
Yeah,
and it's hard. I'm a firm believer that there's too many divisions in Speedway in Australia. There's a lot of divisions that could merge together.
Yeah.
Take, for instance, the V6 sprints, the leader sprints, and whatever micro sprints there are around the country. They tried, but everyone wanted to be their own identity, and it didn't work. So, Speedway Australia need to be firm.
Yeah.
That's where I think it starts, is Speedway Australia need to be firm and say, okay, in 5 years' time, all you divisions are joining together to make one national division, rather than state divisions in 4 different state divisions, which are all very, very similar.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is such a good class in itself too. Like, you look at the drivers that came from our lightning sprints in SA.
Agreed.
And that's just And then you see what they're running in Sydney or what Brisbane was running in. It's like, I understand that they're different motors and stuff, but surely they can do something to bring them closer.
That's what I would like to see ultimately if I was to see Speedway progress, is reduce the division, and that way then you're going to get more numbers in divisions. Yeah. Rather than having shows in states where you get 3 or 4 cars,
Yeah. I think it's sometimes too, and not knocking promoters or anything like that, it's sometimes the way that, sometimes we don't need 8 classes on the one night either.
Yeah, I agree.
And I actually said this to someone the other day. I think the other problem is too, though, I think as Australians, we'd probably split the dummy paying $30 to get in the Speedway to see 2 or 3 classes as well, though. I think we like that value for money thing as well.
Yeah, but you go to the footy. If you go to the AFL footy, you're paying $50 to get in the gate. You're seeing 2 teams run around for a couple of hours, and then you go home.
Yeah,
Speedway doesn't need to go for 6 hours like it does.
Yeah,
it could be starting at 5 o'clock, finishing at 9:30, 10 o'clock, and everybody's home by 11.
Yeah, actually, I spoke to someone who had a really good idea on running a Speedway in terms of have the sort of lower classes or the support classes run earlier and get them run and done, and then have the sprint cars come out once the sun's gone and run basically their full show in a compacted sort of area.
That has been happening the last couple of years. The sprint cars up at Murray Bridge don't come out until 6:30, 7 o'clock, as late as they can.
Yeah.
Just to try and save the track a bit.
Yeah. It seems to be working as
well. It does work, yeah.
And then that goes into that magical thing of track prep. Which is that's just That's
I don't envy promoters or track prep people. Yeah.
no. And to be fair though, like on Friday night with Chariots, the track wasn't great, and I'm not knocking them in any shape or form because like I don't even know how to drive a grader, so there you go. But the track wasn't great, but the racing was absolutely awesome. It doesn't have to be a billiard table.
No,
but the racing was absolutely great, and like even my wife said, she's like, oh geez, the track doesn't look great, and I said, yeah, but it's tracks like that where the driver comes out, and that's as a true fan, that's
well. For big events, I think you want to see passing.
Yeah.
Like spectators want to see passing. And if you're not getting passing, then it's not probably the best spectacle in the world. But
yeah.
Yeah. I love Speedway. It doesn't matter whether there's passing or not. I'll watch it.
Yeah. That's the other thing.
It's more entertaining if there's a lot of passing.
Yeah. That's the one thing that I've spoken about before. Like, probably... like Murray Bridge being like our local track, as far as they're concerned, like my money's guaranteed for probably 75% of those shows this year, but trying to bring new people into the sport is just like, it's like pulling teeth.
You got to promote it.
Yeah.
I think I saw you, I don't know if it was Joel or maybe Tyson's Hour of Power interview you did with them, maybe even Jack, I can't remember who it was. You got to promote the sport. If you're not promoting it, like back in the day, you used to see it on TV, it's commercialised on TV. I couldn't tell you the last time I saw Speedway advertised on TV.
Yeah.
Whether that's a money thing or not, I don't know, but I'm sure it's advertised a lot locally in their newspapers up at Murray Bridge or on radio. But down here, you don't hear it very much at all.
Yeah. Yeah, Wendy used to smash the TV adverts. They're always like really loud and like, It was always that kind of like, it's I've seen the argument made with like UFC before. Like people have been to a UFC night and there's been no knockouts, and it's like because all of the adverts for it showed knockouts. It's like the sprint cars just shows all these crashes, and then there's no crashes. So it's like it's the only thing that in defence of that, I know someone who had a TV advert for their business, and it is hectic money. Like,
I can imagine.
It's like and to spend that kind of money on advertising, you want to see returns, and I just don't know if that return will be there
I agree
anymore.
with that too. Yeah.
So it's like, it's a hard thing.
It is a hard. Like I said, don't envy a promoter.
Not at all.
It's not an easy job.
Yeah, which you'd fully know about that. What do you reckon it is? So it's like track rater is the most hated, then promoter. I think it has to be club residents, or
I don't know. I'm sure there's people out there that don't like me, but I wouldn't say club presidents are necessarily hated a hell of a lot, but probably a lot of people don't realise how much work you put in, so they don't. They can't appreciate what they don't know. I guess.
So maybe everyone should do a stint helping the club out before they.
Well, it's something that is probably a dying breed is volunteers.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder, and the older I get, and the rest of my committee gets, it's you've got to get some young people stepping up and. I mean, they all want to race. If we weren't here, they couldn't race.
Yeah.
So, it'd be nice to have some young people step up and even just join the committee and learn how it all works so that when people like myself and the rest of the committee want to give it away, they'll still have a club to run the sport. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why, like, I know stuff like footy clubs and stuff like that, they literally just have to, like, say, you're helping the canteen today, or, there's no ifs or buts, like, you're doing it.
And with our club, we don't have to do all that. We don't have to run canteens. We don't have to run, speedways. We're just running our division.
Yeah.
It's not a great deal of work.
Yeah.
On a race day, you've got to do scrutineering and get grid draws organised. And then that's pretty much it, really. But, in terms of running the club in the background, I'm not going to be here forever.
Yeah. So, sort of, back to like new people in the sport, do you ever have like conversations with people that like you race speedway and you're into it and stuff, and then they sort of question like what is it sort of thing, like
all the time?
Yeah. And they just don't understand it. A
lot of people don't even know what speedway is.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, especially because of how deep into it we are. It's
to explain to somebody race speedway and they go, oh, what exactly is that? I just say it's like driving around the outside of a football oval on dirt.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way I can describe it.
Yeah. And do you ever have these conversations with people that are into racing as well? Like they might be into vet supercars or something like that.
I can't recall, but I'm sure I have. Yeah.
Yeah, and they still
Yeah,
can't wrap their head around it.
No.
Yeah. And like to you, is speedway like the best form of racing as well?
100%.
Yeah.
Everything happens in front of you.
Yeah. It's such a.
You go to the Formula 1 or V8 supercars and you see 300 metres of track, and Formula 1 you'd see the car for like a half a second.
If that, yeah. I actually had this convo the other day that we used to have grandstand tickets on the front stretch for Clipsal, and you used to like, start of the race was great because they're all there and they take off and they go to that first corner and then you look at the big screen.
You're watching it on TV.
And they come, you can see that they're coming to the straight and then you watch them go past back to the big screen, and then it's like after a couple of days of doing that, you're like, what am I doing? It's just bizarre, isn't it? Like, how do we get new and more people into it though? Do you like think that we're on a downhill slide speedway in general?
Probably overall to a certain extent. I wouldn't say it's dying. Like I said, in Wingless we've had 26 new people over 3 years, so maybe that's just because of our division amount of cars we have. I don't know. How much other divisions are growing, I really couldn't answer that because I'm not involved with those other divisions. So yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I believe that the sport is not being promoted how it could be, and that's probably something that we need to improve to get people to come and watch the sport at least, if not get involved in it. It's always the diehards, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
We all know it's the diehards that turn up every week to watch the racing, or those people involved with it.
Yeah, because that's what, like, I've always had the thought, like, there's 8,000-9,000 people at the Classic. Well, they're all diehards. There's no casual fans there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I'm sure you would have seen, like, the casual fan was at World Series at Speedway City. Like, those nights are crazy. Those people were there because the World Series name was there.
Exactly.
Like, they weren't there the week before or the week after.
Yeah,
they were there because of that event. And it's, to us, it's sort of not really any different at night.
Yeah,
like,
it's like I said, it's hard for the promoter because they need to make money, but maybe one night a year they need to throw the gates open and promote it as a free event. But then how does the promoter make money? It's
it's
hard.
It's a hard one. I do want to speak to a promoter about all that sort of stuff because I've had those thoughts too, like 2-for-1 tickets or something like that, or something, or if you could somehow guarantee that someone's new, never been, they can in for, like, I don't know how you do it. I really don't, and sort of don't. Yeah, definitely don't envy them in that position either. But yeah, I mean, for myself anyway, and I know that Speedway City's gone, like that's done with, but I'd love to see those days of like Boxing Night there back again. Like, and I just don't see. I don't see it happening, and like, as much as I want it to, I don't.
You're probably right. I don't see that happening either. In terms of the crowd sizes, but it's always the hardest thing is how do you get new people involved, and I don't have the golden egg for that one.
I think we're sort of starting to get there, and like a few of these vet supercar drivers are dabbling in sprint cars and stuff, and I think people always say that like he's gone to it and stuff, but I'm pretty sure Cameron Waters started racing speedway anyway. I think he was in junior sedans and stuff anyway.
I know there's a Waters in modified sedans. I don't know whether Cam actually raced modified sedans at all, but
I know he had dabbled in. No, he did. He actually won a national title in a modified sedan.
Did he? Yeah. So,
That the other one, Jared's his brother. So he actually came from speedway. So it's sort of, to me, it's not him stepping down to a sprint car. It's like him going to V8 supercars is weird.
That's for the people in V8 supercars. They think he's stepping down. They don't know. That's because they don't know his background, I guess.
And they don't understand the racing is 100 times better.
It's like those guys going to NASCAR, like Larson and Tony Stewart. Those guys, they all started in speedway. And I'm sure there's heaps of other speedway nuts too that don't see them as coming back to sprint cars or anything like that. You see them as being a sprint car driver, that's right,
or a midget racer, or whatever it is. So it's it's a hard one. As much as you want to see new people come into the sport, and it's like, and even just trying to like describe it to them and what the night is and stuff is just
even for people to look at a wingless car, you know, okay, it looks like a car because it's got 4 wheels, but the actual body is all purpose built. It's nothing like the cars that they would see in terms of even NASCARs or V8 supercars. They actually look like cars, whereas this, you know, apart from having 4 wheels, doesn't look like a lot like a road car, does it? So
I've copped the whole like dune buggy thing before.
Oh,
that, everyone says, you go watch the dune. It's like, they're not dune buggies, man. They're like,
yeah, I've shown people pictures of my car before, and they're like, nice buggy.
Buggy. That's I've copped that one a fair few times and stuff too. Like, it's a, I don't know. What do you do? I don't know.
Yeah, until they actually get to the track and see it, it's a hard one to explain.
Yeah. So did you ever go Rolly Park or anything like that? Was that?
I reckon when I was, my memory's not that great, but I reckon when I was younger, my dad took me to Rolly Park once before it closed. Yeah. So like, I'm pretty sure it was Rolly Park, but I'm pretty sure my old man told me like the tram used to run to it from the CBD. And like, quite possible.
And like, because it was like a Friday night, was like the big night there. Like, people just left the office and everyone just go to Rolly Park.
Well,
like,
so close to the city.
Yeah, and that was just the thing. Like, it wasn't necessarily like, that was probably like more casual fan than anything than diehard racers. Like, and now no one's got a metro track in Australia. Maybe Perth is metro-ish sort of thing.
Perth is Motorplex is a fair way from.
Is it? Yeah,
Perth.
I've never been there, so I can't.
I've never actually been there to watch racing, but I went over to Perth for work not long ago and
it's a
went
hike
for an excursion. Yeah, it's a fair hike out of Perth itself. Yeah,
and then I'm not from Sydney, so I can't say, but I'd imagine that
I think it's about 40 minutes out of Sydney itself. Yeah,
so you probably can't really say that's metro as well. So
no, not really.
I mean, and us probably being from Adelaide too, we wouldn't really say that Speedway City was a metro track as such, but it's probably as close as you're going to get.
We don't have to drive 40 minutes to get there from the city. It's only sort of 25 minutes. So
well, that was the golden thing for me with where I'm at. It was an hour to Speedway City or Murray Bridge. So and that's unfortunately
disappointing, but you never know. Never say never, you know.
Fuck, I'll buy it. If this makes enough money, I'm down for it. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't know.
I think a consortium would need to get it, buy it and get it going again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done out there.
It's a lot of money just in general to, like, doing. Like, I've heard, like, rumours of people building one from scratch and stuff, and the figures that they've said that they're putting into it, like, working from a construction point of view, I don't see you doing it for that kind of money. Like, and like, let's be honest too, if we want to bring new people into the sport, it needs to be at that like Perth Motorplex, Eastern Creek level facility. We can't. We can't have just some like. Yeah,
I think if you're going to knock Speedway City down and start from scratch, you need to, like I say, you need to make it a world-class facility. Yeah,
and like undoubtedly, like having been there, Eastern Creek is one for sure.
Yeah, well, I haven't actually been there yet, so
that whole place is just like wild.
Looking forward to getting there and having a look.
Yeah. The best toilets in Speedway in Australia, I'm telling you now. In the pits. It's a palace in there. I'm not even joking. Everyone who's been there will understand. Like, it's
not hard to beat some of the toilets.
No, that's right. So, and that's the kind of thing too. And like, I spoke about this with a venue that I went to this year with my wife, and like dudes were looking at me funny because I had the wife with me, and it's like, luckily for me, I can drag her along because I can guarantee there's a whole heap of wives that like I'm not going there because like some of the venues just aren't they're not great.
Definitely not. Yeah,
and to me, it's like all those venues are missing out on another ticket sale for a couple of thousand people coming in the gate. Yeah, it's like,
and all it needs is better toilet facilities.
More or less, maybe a salad in the canteen or something like that. You know, it's just there's money to be made there. Yeah, like and that's, I don't know. It's not. I'm not in that position to make those calls or know what else goes on and stuff. But
I don't know. It's there are things that some venues could improve, but a lot of them are regional venues, aren't they? And it's all community run, so it's hard.
Yeah,
definitely hard.
And like we're saying, the volunteer stuff is just
getting volunteers is getting harder.
Yeah, like you'd have to do would you have to do like a working with children police clearance for volunteering at a speedway? There's almost nothing that you don't have to these days, is there?
With our division, because we do have people under 16. If we're scrutineering cars, then we need to have as part of your scrutineering training.
Yeah.
Because Speedway Australia have an online training system. I don't know if you're aware.
No.
For stewards and scrutineers. So if you want to become a scrutineer, you go online and you do this online training, and part of that is like a working with children thing. And yeah, you do need to have it, but a lot of people already have it because they have kids and they go to other sporting events, not just Speedway. So a lot of people have it already. So
just go to school sports day or something.
Yeah.
It's getting out of control, isn't it?
It is. Yeah,
it's a good reason, but yeah, it's like someone to fork out the cost of doing it to volunteer is like
some states are different to others.
Yeah.
I know. I'm pretty sure New South Wales is a lot stricter than here in South Australia, but yeah, it's one of those things that you got to do. So
yeah.
You do it. You only have to do it once. It's not like you have to do it every year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. Well, I know with what I do with work, we got to do them for every.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, every time.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So like they're not a yearly thing or anything like that. I got to do a new one every time, new site and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Don't know why. It's a ball breaking task, but
yeah,
I get it. But yeah, so
protocols.
Well, we sort of need rules, don't we?
Absolutely.
There's the grey areas of them, but yeah. So, all right, Darryl. Thanks, man. This is hopefully everyone's saying like a good insight into what goes on to like running a club, and it's not just a matter of rocking up and racing. And
you also got to have a good committee. I believe I've got the best committee in Australia in the Wingless, most stable committee at least.
Yep.
So yeah, shout out to them. They help me out. It's not just me.
Yeah.
Also the committee. So yeah, we get together as much as we can in terms of having club meetings, club committee meetings to work out how the club's going to go forward. And yeah, it's not just one person.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
I can imagine some other. Yeah.
A lot of my committee will say I do a ton of the work, which I do a fair bit of the work, but they also help out. So it's not just a one man show. It's the SA Wingless show. It's not Darryl Sloan's show.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Darryl.
No worries. Thank you.
I'll see you around.
Appreciate it.
Easy
Thanks.
done. Cheers, mate.